So I don't know if you've realized, but when I'm watching TV, I see a whole lot more sports than I know that when my parents watched TV growing up. And it started in the evening news packages, just as kind of quick highlights. But now it's just taking over with 24-hour ESPN stations, and then you got the branch offs of ESPN2 and ESPNU, and just kind of all of that going on. But now you're seeing a lot more with the specific leagues owning their own stations. So NFL Network, MLB Network, NBA TV. But like you were mentioning to me earlier, you kind of have that new thing with HBO and Showtime trying to produce their own sports shows. And I mean, what do you see with that?
I mean, like you said, yeah, definitely there's a lot less. I mean, really the first sports show I can even think of really when people talk about sports is what ABC's Wild World of Sports. And I mean, then you have that, which was on once a week, and it showed like all these fringe sports, and then it would kind of have in, they'd mix in other sports with it, but it wouldn't be, anywhere near what we see now. But with HBO and Showtime, what it really does is it's almost, a lot of people refer to sports as a reality show because it's always happening in front of you and it's real life. But now with these channels like HBO are doing with shows like Hard Knocks or the 24/7 with on HBO when they follow people around before an event, teams or sometimes boxers before an event, they make a reality show out of the reality show almost. And they have the emotion, they have the really funny parts that you can see, but then they also have a little bit more of a grittier look. It's uncensored. And I mean, you can look at people like Rex Ryan in the first Hard Knocks, who became pretty well known around the league for his potty mouth, I guess. And then you got Chad Ochocinco with Child Please, and that started on Hard Knocks. And so, I mean, it's definitely a new way to look at sports, and it gives fans a much different perspective, and a perspective that is just so much more open. But that's why, and also maybe that openness is why a lot of teams recently have not wanted to be on Hard Knocks, because of how close of a look it allows people to get.
So kind of running with Hard Knocks, like you mentioned, Chad Ochocinco creating the phrase "Child Please." It's kind of immersed into our society. You'll see it around in a lot of athletes, from the playgrounds up to the big leagues. Throw that term around. But like a lot of successful television programs in the past, these Hard Knocks have central characters who kind of drive the story. There's a narrative of, will they make the team? Are they the gritty veteran? Are they the newcomer? What's the kind of background to why they're on the show? And I think that because we've seen that recipe be successful with storylines and strong characters, that's why these shows are working, more so than just being about football.
Yeah, and even that type of format has even carried over into some other sports. The NBA TV this year, they had a show called The Association where they followed around the Denver Nuggets for the entire year. And it wasn't as close of a look as maybe Hard Knocks is, with the uncensored type of things that go on, and there's not really as much drama because it's not during training camp. It's not, will these guys make the team or not? They follow them for the whole season. But that type of format seems to work, and it's getting a lot more attention, and a lot more people are trying to hone that type of feeling in, and even leagues are trying to reproduce that.
I think it's kind of interesting that the association tried to do it as opposed to preseason, where it doesn't really matter if cameras are in there. You're in the regular season. You're competing for that eighth spot in the West, trying to get into the playoffs, and you constantly have a camera over your shoulder. Does that kind of put the internal censorship into your mind as the Nuggets head coach George Karl, or as Al Harrington as a veteran on the team? Are you always thinking about, any other year I would motivate my team this way, but with the camera and America watching, do I have to kind of diverge with that route and make a new plan?
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting how that presence completely changes how they act, and it's really weird. I mean, and the thing that also happens is that you and I played sports before, and you've been around a team in a locker room, and you get those kind of like inside joke type things that you see, and then with these types of shows, it almost lets you be a part of that team, and you like, even if you maybe aren't a fan of the New York Jets or the Denver Nuggets or the Cincinnati Bengals, you start almost feeling it creates almost a sympathetic feeling for the person that's watching it. That's like, oh, I know these guys a little bit better. Maybe I'll root for them. And I mean, I think that is another factor that can play into the success of these shows.
How do you think that this kind of reality TV with the sports teams compares to what kind of the common consensus of reality TV is with Jersey Shore and those kind of, what you would perceive as trashy television? Mm-hmm. Is this more quality?
Well, I think it is, because the events that drive the narratives in the shows like Hard Knocks are actually real. They're not scripted in there by, they're already going to happen no matter what, whether the camera is there or not. But when you look at reality TV shows, those events that kind of drive narratives wouldn't happen unless the camera was there.
Right.
So I think that that's what makes the difference, that kind of sets these shows apart from normal reality TV or, lower quality reality TV, is that those wouldn't happen without the camera. But whether the camera is there or not in a sports show like that, those events still are going to happen. Someone's going to get cut. Someone's going to play in a preseason game. And, that's, I think, one of the main reasons that makes it a little bit higher quality than reality TV.
But you gotta say, some of those athletes are definitely mugging for the camera, trying to get that extra exposure if possible. I mean, if you're appealing on one of these reality shows, doesn't that mean your jersey sales are going up? More people are going to want to come to your games, watch you on television. There's got to be that kind of internal motivation to kind of, yeah, I'm funny, but I'm gonna let everyone know I'm funny.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it definitely does give people an opportunity to express themselves and really show who they are. And then back to Hard Knocks again, like a sport in the NFL where you don't get to see people's personalities really on display at all. They've always got a helmet on. You don't really ever see emotion that much. But because the NFL is more about the shield in the league than the players on the field, mm-hmm. and the personalities. And shows like Hard Knocks give, like you said, an opportunity to lesser known people to get to know those people, to get to know you, and get your name out there as someone bigger than just number whatever.
No, I think that's definitely valid. If you see 3 football players and 3 basketball players walking down the street, odds are you're going to be able to recognize those basketball players more often because they're not wearing that covered up mask. They're in front of the camera on the court as opposed to just interviews and off the court as well.
I think it's really interesting where sports is going now. Narrative has always driven sports and the coverage of sports, but now you see all these different ways and these different narratives that maybe you wouldn't pay attention to otherwise. I mean, shows like Hard Knocks give people that opportunity to follow the narrative of the lesser known person, the person that you don't see on the marquee, and I think that is an added element. And it's also because how TV in and of itself has become so much more divided and so much more niche, and they're different, and so it gives people an opportunity to find the even more specific for those people that are really trying to see more human emotion. And I think it's interesting. It's interesting to see that the direction in the way it's going.
Well, how far do you think it's gonna go? Are we gonna get to the point where not only are we seeing them in training camp, but we're going to be there when they tuck their kids in at bed. We're going to be there when they're pouring their cereal in the morning. I mean, I think that it's definitely something where there's going to be a camera on every person in every one of these leagues in just a couple years' time. There's not going to be a moment that the leagues or the television networks are going to risk missing because it's marketable television that obviously people are watching.
Yeah, and also I think something that's adding into that too, or maybe that is Twitter and the presence of Twitter with athletes and Twitter on television. I mean, you see a lot of people gain popularity simply because of their Twitter accounts. And one example that I can see is the popularity of Tony Allen within NBA fans. He's a very, very popular player amongst NBA fans because his Twitter account has gotten so many followers and so many people have started to follow him and like him because of that. And I think that maybe it's probably going to have to shift more towards the internet for the type of thing that you're talking about, the thing of having those cameras on all the time, because networks aren't going to be able to have enough space for that. But I think definitely the way that you're saying that it's going to go with people having those cameras on them, I think it's definitely going to be pushed more towards the internet than anything.
I don't know if you saw it, but earlier this week or this morning, I saw a tweet that the NBA will be doing their first ever social media awards for players, for teams, based on their clout on Twitter, on what videos they're creating on YouTube, and that'll be hosted later this month by Shaq. So people are going to tune in for that. In addition to just following them, they're also going to get the TV recap with the award show as well. And I mean, I don't see, like you said, that dying down ever. I think the way the internet is now and the direction it seems to be going with the pace it's getting, we're going to know everything from what color boxers our favorite players are wearing to their daily routine for kind of pregame, anything we want to know. It'll just be right in front of us at either a remote click or a type into a pass and you're in.
Yeah. It's really interesting to see where it's all going.
Well, I hope you enjoyed kind of talking about our view on the reality style of sports television. I know in the future things will obviously change, but that's kind of where I think we're at for the present.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us.